Friends, welcome back to Art Class with Mr. Poulis. Today we're going to be talking about foreground, middle ground, and background. Let's get started. So here's a painting that I've been working on the iPad. And it has a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Now, we've probably talked about backgrounds a lot. The background is kind of what's going on around your character or around your painting. So the background for this one would be the sky and the mountains. The background is the stuff that's super far away and kind of fills up the space. So I will start a new layer, and I'm going to just write background. The middle ground is the stuff that's not super close to the camera, but it's not so far back that you'd call it the background. So these birds here, these trees here, I'm going to call those the middle ground. And you can probably guess the little penguin that's right up front near the viewer is going to be our foreground. Let's do blue. And I'm just going to write F, G. All right. If I did anything else here, he has a little picnic blanket and a little picnic basket, and he's having a little picnic here. This would also be in the foreground, okay? Technically, anything in this snow here is in the foreground. But it's just another way of saying foreground is what's in front, background is what's in back, and the middle ground is what's in the middle. Okay, so what we're going to do next is create our own picture that has a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and then you're going to be adding texture and color to it. It's going to be really cool. So when I do a project like this, I like to start with a little character or something in the front. And it's not going to be super tall, but maybe up to half the page. So I'm going to do a little kitten. You can do anything you'd like. But if you wanted to follow along, you do an oval for the kitten's head, triangles for the kitten's ears, ovals, triangle, the letter W. Some circles in the eyes, a couple whiskers. Okay. For the body, almost like a teardrop shape, comes down and out, down and out. I do circles, I do ovals. Give him a little tail. Okay, so there's my kitten in the foreground. The next thing I'm going to do is add the actual foreground lines. So this could be a bit of a wavy line. Now I'm going to be adding some middle ground stuff, so maybe a couple of trees. This is a good time to use your wavy lines, your cloud lines. I'm going to add a bush and another bush right here. I'm also going to add some hills, so just some rainbow lines like this. Okay, so my foreground right now is just my kitten and whatever happens in this grass if you wanted to add something else. My middle ground is these hills, trees, and bushes. My background, I'm going to add some mountains. To make it look like there's snow on the mountains, I just do this wavy line. And also in the background, very far back, I'm going to add some clouds. I like to keep the bottom of my clouds flat because that happens a lot. Depending on what type of cloud it is, you'll notice the bottom of a cloud is flat. If you want to put a rainbow in there, why not, Mr. Poulis? Why not? One, two, three, four, 5, 6 colors at least. Lots of colors in the rainbow. You could put a sun or a moon or both. And I think this looks pretty cool. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to be adding textures and colors in a moment. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so now it's time to add textures and patterns to things. So to add textures, I'm going to pick a color for my kitten, and I'm going to try and create a fur texture. So I think I'm going to make a little pink kitten, and to create a fur texture, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of lines that flow together. I want to make this kitten look furry. And it's a little bit hard to do textures like this if the thing that you're coloring is very small. But this is going to be okay. So I'm doing lots of lines. I like to think about how the kitten's fur grows, right? You like to pet the kitten from the nose to the back. So that's how I'm going to draw these lines. And then they grow out to the side of the face. And then these small areas I can just color solid, because getting a nice texture in very small areas with a crayon is very difficult to do. Okay. I'm going to add another color in here to my kitten. Some purple. He'll have white little paws. Some purple at the tips of the ears. And I think I'm pretty happy with that kitten. So the next thing I'm going to do is start adding textures and patterns to every single piece of my background and middle ground and foreground. So I might do a pattern of wavy lines. If you wanted to try and add a grass texture, you could do that. The things that are closer to the camera, actually, you'll see the textures better. And as they get farther away, it'll be harder to do that. So let's do a grass texture. So you could do this zigzag line over and over and over and over and over, side to side. I think this will be just fine. There's not a big difference between textures and patterns sometimes, except when you're talking about a sculpture or a real object in real life that's three-dimensional. Well, those textures are very different from patterns because you can feel them, right? Because this is crayon, this is two-dimensional, we've talked about this. This is more of a pattern, but it's supposed to look like a texture. It's supposed to look like grass. It's supposed to look like fur on that kitten. So I'm going to keep adding different textures and different patterns, and I'm going to fast forward through the rest of this video, and I'll see you in a minute. And there you have it. I've created different textures and different patterns for every section of my picture. I have a striped sky. I decided to make it pink so that I didn't have too much blue. I decided to use greens and blues and things for the mountains and the hills, but you can do any colors that you'd like. But as you can see, everything gets its own color, and everything gets its own pattern. And if you have watercolors, you can do a really cool thing where we add watercolors on top of these, and it'll look really cool. So this might take you 2 days, but we'll see. Keep at it, and I'll see you guys next time.